Hey everybody, this is Zach with Luck of the Draw and the Luck of the Draw podcast. I'm joined by my good buddy, Big Bread, Tim Redding, and Jason Floyd from Top Notch Blades. Looking forward to having some fun with these gentlemen tonight. It's finally summer. Hopefully you're able to harvest a good turkey. Unfortunately, that wasn't my luck this year, but all that means is we're one day closer to prepping for deer season. So Jason, we're glad to have you on, sir. I mean, to say that your work is amazing is an understatement. So we're definitely privileged to one, call you a partner and a sponsor, but also be able to sit down, hear how you do what you do, how you got into it, and really hunting in general, and just have some fun. So thanks again for being on.
No, definitely glad to be here. Glad to be a part of you guys and maybe get to share a story or two with a little bit of my hunting background and that's kind of how my knives have evolved into what they are now. Um, but yeah, no, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, definitely looking forward to working with you over the next couple years, and hopefully we can find a good common ground between, you guys down there in Texas, correct? And us up, well, we're kind of all over the place, but hopefully we could facilitate a hunt where we could all get together and try and see if we can't see who shoots the biggest buck kind of thing.
No, that'd be a blast.
Good deal. Good deal.
So,
Well, tell me a little bit about, obviously you don't have to be a hunter to be a knife maker, but I'm assuming in most cases, usually that's part of the reason why you get into it. So tell me kind of how you got into hunting first off, and then we'll work to the knives later.
well, the hunting part of it was kind of a way of life for me. From the word go. I started quail hunting with my dad when I was 5 or 6 years old, and me and the bird dog. And then when I got old enough to carry a shotgun, then I started hunting with them, and it was when hunting season got there, it was every weekend, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, those are some of the best memories when you're young and you're out there with your grandparents or your extended family, aunts, uncles, that type of stuff. And I think it's safe to say I've only got a little bit of Texas blood in me for the parts of 6, 7 years I lived there when I was with the Astros. But it seems like every kid has a rite of passage in Texas when it comes hunting that, we don't have the money to afford a bird dog. That's why we have kids.
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
you guys get thrown out into the mesquite and the cactus and the prickers and the stuff
Yeah,
and flush those birds out for the grown ups. And
yeah.
then, of course, guess who's left to clean the birds also?
No doubt, and ours led into, like I said, I started hunting at a really early age. And fortunate to still be, where I grew up on the Good Buddy system, where a lot of landowners still let you go and hunt their place, and it stayed close to home. We never had to go, 2 or 3 hour trips. It was, 15, 20 minute drive at the most
Right.
for us to find birds. And then down the road, that kind of led to a little bit of a guide operation that my dad started and I got to be a part of. And it grew pretty significantly, really quick. Um, and it was, man, it was a cool being able to experience that in a youth. Uh, is something that I couldn't have ever, I can't do that with my kids, but uh, man, it was really neat to be able to experience it.
Sure. Absolutely.
Definitely. Now, have you lived and been grown up in Texas, or did you kind of live in other states?
No, I grew up actually. So right now I live in Amarillo, and I grew up 90 miles north of here in a little town called Canadian, Texas.
That's awesome. Now, I'm assuming, I mean, not that you would necessarily need to because there's such a variety of game down there in Texas, but has there been any other states that you've hunted?
No, actually, I have. In fact, I've never hunted any further south than where I am now. We did all of our hunting up in the Panhandle, up right up in the almost in Oklahoma, but no, I mean we everything from deer, pigs, quail, turkey, everything. We had everything right there, right out our back porch, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, up there, I mean, we obviously have a very unique common friend up there in Canadian Texas in the Panhandle, where you're from, Jason,
Yeah,
and Donnie Anderson. And coming up there last December and early January with my son and being there a couple times before, knowing the land, knowing the topography, knowing the geography, it really is an outdoorsman's paradise.
no doubt.
I mean, you're missing what? You're missing moose, you're missing bear, and maybe alligators, but you got everything else.
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
pronghorn, you got elk, you got birds, and everything else.
yeah. And I mean, you got to go hunt on what was my old deer lease back before it's owned by the guy that's owned now. That was our property back then,
Right.
which it was about 2,000 acres, and it's crazy what all is on that place and what all you can
Well,
do. And
especially when you got the river running through there. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a little mecca for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I got torched during those fires.
Yeah, I
I
did.
know, I know that was near and dear to you and family and friends growing up back there. And you and the Diamondbacks and the Amarillo Sod Poodles actually got a semi full of goods and stuff to take up there for the patrons and the citizens of the Panhandle and the surrounding areas. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to have a really really good backing and support base at the Sod Poodles where I work. Those guys are when something like that happens, they're Johnny on the spot. And so we partnered up with a couple other people. Uh, got a semi truck, parked it in a parking lot, and myself and Jeff Schwarzenberg, the guy that I work with, manned that for 24 hours and filled up that trailer and had it ready to go the
Wow.
next day. So yeah, it was the community support here is really unique. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, that's
So and it's not just like it's not just the Amarillo area. I mean, I think it's the whole Texas Panhandle. And then
Absolutely. That's what I was
you
gonna
know,
say. Panhandle Texans are a little different than the Metropolis Texans, and I mean you're a Texan true and true, no doubt. But it seems like the towns being so far apart and all the Friday Night Lights rivalries and stuff y'all get up there still comes down to the fact that we're all human beings, we're all
no doubt.
Texans, and when one Texan needs help, the next one next to you is right there to help you out.
Yeah. No, it's a cool area, really. I mean, besides the only bad thing is being isolated, you're a long ways from getting to do a whole lot of fun stuff. But I think the place to raise your kids and the way of life up here is just different.
Yeah,
And it's a good different. It's not a bad different.
absolutely. We'll get you there one day, Zach. You can chime in on the conversations on the next podcast when you get there.
hey, I know we've been talking about it for the past year or so, but sounds absolutely amazing. And I mean, I live up here in a small town in Michigan where a good chunk of land is 100, plus acres. I mean, that's like a dream. But a lot of people are more than content with 20 acres, 40-acre farms that they hunt off of or lease. So to hear the numbers jump from 20 to 40 to what do you say, 2,000 acres, it's just everything's bigger in Texas.
Uh,
Yeah, when you're in Michigan and the years I've lived there and coming from Western New York, we talk about, oh, how many acres you have? I have 10, I have 15, I have 20. And the Panhandle in Texas, it's how many sections do you own?
I was gonna
Each
say that
section's a square mile, by the way. So, oh, I have 20 sections. Oh,
the
so is that like 20 acres? No, that's 20 square miles. Everything the light touches is your kingdom.
the place we did all of our quail guiding on when we were guiding quail and raising quail, all the quail that we hunted were live. I mean, we're wild. We didn't turn any birds loose. But the place that we hunted was 7 sections.
Yeah, that's
And
a lot of land.
we we would show up, we'd get everybody going at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're still hunting the same place at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And you haven't turned around, you haven't done anything, you haven't gone backwards.
No,
You just keep walking forward.
Going line.
Crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
But with all that different kind of game that you can hunt there, and I mean, for what Timmy's told me, it sounds like it's a vast amount of different game. I mean, like I said, I would love to get down there, but do you have a most memorable hunt from anything you've hunted down there in Texas or anywhere else?
What you dream to hunt?
Yeah.
Oh man, I would love to go on a bull elk hunt. That's always been something I wanted to do. Never have gotten to do it. I got to take my wife. My wife actually got to take me up to Wyoming, and she had the tag. I just got to go along. She drew out a
Oh, my camera.
she drew out a elk tag, and it was a cow elk tag, wasn't a bull. But we got to go spend a week in Wyoming with all the family and stuff, with all of her family. It was a lot of fun. But to say I wasn't jealous is an understatement. That's always kind of been something I wanted to do. And I've been around the big bucks and stuff like that. I've never had really aspirations to go, shoot a giant. I can't say I wouldn't if I had the opportunity, but that's just never been something that's really appealed to me personally. But the elk always has, because everybody's always said how hard it is, and that's kind of my I guess that's kind of how I am. Is the challenge would be a blast, would be fun.
Sure.
Whether you came out with anything or not.
Definitely. Tim, have you done elk?
So yes, I've done elk. No, I have not done it out west, and I guess you could say no, it was not free range. So when I had the fortitude to take my uncles, that got me into hunting, we had already done a moose hunt up in Canada. We went to Alberta one year in the off season, and all three of us were fortunate enough to go through the same outfitter, and we all got bull elk tags or bull moose tags. And so the three of us took 3 bulls, various sizes, and you imagine 3 bull moose with about a good 5,500 pounds of meat to have off of them. Being that we flew, we were only able to take 200 pounds a piece back, so that we left quite a bit of fare for the landowners and the outfitters, which sometimes that's just the way it goes. But my elk was in Ohio, of all places, at a ranch and outfitter through Ben Rising. If any of y'all know the name Ben Rising in the professional hunting world, he is a pro staff offspring, or at least he was, with the Drury Outdoors crew. And Mark Drury hooked me up with him. We went there to go whitetail hunting, and ever experienced in my life to whitetail hunt. And he had 2 bull elk left on a 1 square mile high fenced in area. And when they were fighting, one of them got stabbed in the shoulder, and he had a pretty bad puncture wound. And so he offered him up to me as a consolation prize for paying for 5 whitetail hunts and not being able to even see anything other than a couple button bucks and does and everything because the weather was so bad. So that was my one and only elk experience. So I'm definitely on the same train as Jason. I would love to get that Colorado, Wyoming, Montana opportunity to go out. Bow or rifle doesn't matter to me. I kind of like to do things with a gun first to get some experience before I try and get up close and personal. Just because, as we all know, being in the outdoor industry, it can get a little pricey. And if you come back with a tag sandwich, it doesn't really taste all that good, no matter how much peanut butter or mayonnaise you throw on it.
No, and unfortunately, I think we've all probably been there where maybe not to the expense level of an outfitter, but we've definitely all eaten a tag sandwich. I mean, That's how my turkey season went. So it's freshly digesting in my belly.
Hey, at least you don't have any tryptophan. You won't fall asleep.
There you go. Um, yeah, I mean, I know we've talked a little bit on some of the previous episodes about some of the hunts that I would like to do, and obviously elk's up there, moose would be amazing. But for some reason, I've got this real bad itch for bear. Just a nice big black bear, or if I got lucky enough to get pulled for like a trip to Alaska for a brown bear, that I mean obviously be amazing. And then gator. For some reason, I've wanted to do a gator hunt for years. And if I think it's probably because a lot of the common denominator is they're apex predators. So, you make some wrong choices and it, could lead to unfavorable situations. So I think just to be able to take them on one, granted, it's a little bit easier with a rifle, but would still be a blast nonetheless. I think it gets your heart racing seeing a big bear that, it's not behind zoo glass and stuff like that, and being able to harvest it cleanly and get it on camera, of course. But
Right.
Yeah,
now,
no
Yeah, I
doubt.
would say my apex predator hunt checklist dream would be a black leopard in Africa.
that'd be cool.
Right, that's my holy grail.
Yeah, definitely. Now I
Don't
know,
know why, just appeals to me.
you know, I don't know. But it's once again, like you said, it's an apex predator. They have every good a chance to get to you first before you get to them. I think it's cool to kind of have that level of balance between predator and prey sometimes. But that's not to say I haven't seen pictures and videos of whitetails tearing people up. Have you ever seen those?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, they're gnarly. So I'm not giving the whitetail any less credit. They can be rough too, but I mean,
Yeah, I've had my taste of the prey side of that, and I think the appeal to me is lost. So we have I've had too many close encounters with wild boars that I'm good.
oh, tell me
Yeah,
a little bit
right.
more about that. Obviously don't have any wild boar up here.
So you see one take a bullet with a 7 mag and get back up, you're going, yeah, I'm good.
What the size ranges of those boars usually go?
Yeah. What's that?
What's the size range? How big can those boar get down there? I know they're in
So this
big.
this kind of I would say your wild boars, a big one around, yeah, around, I don't know, from here south would probably be close to 200 pounds, 250, somewhere in there. You get up to Canadian, where they've kind of done some crossbreeding with some domestic hogs that have been turned loose. It's not out of the realm to see one over 400.
A big old
So I can say with my own eyes, I've got pictures of me with one that's about 300 that I shot one morning out on the place that Tim was on, down on the river. And
Mhm.
that wasn't the only one out there that was over 300 taken, but we had one in particular that we had a guy come in and want to do a night hunt. And we said, have at it. He paid us to do a night hunt and took himself. We kind of told him where to go and where not to, and about, I don't know. I mean, it was well after dark. We got a phone call, met him at the gate on that flatbed, took up the whole thing.
Oh my God.
Well, I don't know. I have no clue what it weighed,
Huh,
but I know he was on a flatbed ranch truck, and it took up majority of the flatbed.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I know Donnie had a couple pictures on camera, a couple 350 pushing. I mean, they were up close to the poles and the gates, and their backs were about as high as the second rail on the gate.
Yeah,
I mean, that's about 3.5, 4 feet at the back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That to tell you, that place is crazy. It's got some really cool game on it, and I mean, and a lot of it.
Yeah.
So,
Now, this
but
might strike you guys as a dumb question, seeing as how, you have or are currently Texans, but you know, a lot of the guys that I know that have ever done hog hunts don't keep the hog meat. You know, say a lot of the wild boar can't be eaten. Has that been either of your guys' experience that they're fun to hunt, kind of like a coyote? They're fun to hunt, but you know, unless
Yeah.
you're you know, kind of like
No,
what
they 100%. They smell awful,
do they?
and they don't taste them. They don't taste a whole lot better than they smell.
Oh man.
The sows are good eating. I mean, if you get a 200-pounder or less, the sows are
Yeah,
pretty good. Those are the ones you can put on the spit and cook them at an outing. But you get a boar of any size other than a piglet. I mean, they're pretty raunchy. They're pretty raunchy once they start getting territorial and wallowing in the ground and their swale and everything. They get pretty bad.
yeah. It's terrible.
They definitely don't look pretty.
They'll get on the wall.
Yeah. I'm imagining their teeth get pretty big. They're not
Yeah,
very
no,
nice.
they do. In fact, I had a pair of tusks at one time that were probably a good 4 inches. I mean, the one I was talking about, the one I've got a picture of, it's on my Facebook. Um, I cut the tusks off of him because he had some giants.
Those those are some big cutters, 4 inches.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Say,
those will slice right through your leg.
Yeah.
yeah, and we had, my dad was working on a ranch up here in Amarillo, and they had one trapped, and he just had a knee replacement, and they let that pig out of that trap, and he was standing right beside that trap, and that pig took a 180 right on him,
Oof,
and it ripped his pants from his ankles up to his thigh, and didn't get his leg,
wow,
luckily, with
wow.
one swing.
Yep.
They're deceivingly fast.
Oh, they are way quick. In fact, he probably wouldn't have made it out of that without his dog. His dog grabbed that pig and went down. But
Crazy.
he had a pretty dang good wire hair then that definitely knew what he had to do.
Right, right.
So he had a hate for pigs it was actually pretty neat to watch.
I bet.
There were times he would smell one and bail out of the pickup.
No kidding.
And go find it.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, it sounds like you would definitely need a sharp blade to get through one of those hog hides.
no
Uh,
doubt.
so I happen to know a guy, and that guy is you. And I mean, I've been able to, you know, have one of your blades, fortunate enough to have you make us one, each one of the guys for the show, and we're so thankful for that. I mean, they're so beautiful. I mean, yep, Tim's got his too, but I mean, just the craftsmanship. I'll throw some video on there because, you know, obviously we're still in
Yeah, buddy.
we're in the building phase of the podcast, so um very humble beginnings as far as our setup, but I want to make sure that people see just how nice these knives are. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I hate when I'm out in the woods and I'm trying to gut a deer and my knife gets dull, or you're trying to skin them out. If you guys are anything like me, you process your own meat. Um, and I think the older I get, the more I understand the value in having a good blade. Um, so with that said, tell us a little bit about how I mean, how you got into it, because knife making is not just a, you know, trade school thing that, you know, you would learn like an electrician or a plumber kind of thing. So I'd love to hear about that.
So the knife making side of it actually has nothing to do with my youth and growing up hunting and all of that stuff, other than, Dad and I always liked to tinker, and we were always building stuff. And um it kind of just started. We watched a little bit of the show in the beginning, really the first season. Forged in Fire kind of had a little bit of a part in it for sure. I mean, it kind of got the juices flowing. It kind of got the interest level up a little bit. But he back to the same thing with the pig turning on him and doing all that, and him working on the ranch and stuff, he decided to make a pig sticker one day. And when I say a pig sticker, this thing is like what you would think of as like a harpoon, or not a harpoon, but I mean it's
Here,
almost like a throwing javelin, yeah, like a spear.
Yeah.
Except he made the whole thing out of steel. The handle was sucker rod, and the blade was I don't know, 12 or 14 inches, and it was just a spear point, and that kind
Wow.
of started everything. He and my nephew were kind of working on that together, and I was watching from the outside, and I was like, that'd be pretty dang cool to do it. So um, that's kind of what started, the process, and really, the wheels turning of the knife making side of it. And I've always tinkered. I've always liked to make stuff. I've dabbled in doing wood stuff, and in fact, the cabinet that my computer's sitting on right now, I built. But yeah, it's kind of always been something I've done. And then when I got into the knife making, I got hooked. And man, it I took off, and I dove deep really quick. And but it's been a blast.
So how did the casting or the audition ship go for to appear on Porch and Fire?
So that started in season 5, was the first time that I was contacted over social media, and that's kind of the way they work, is they have scouts, so to speak, I guess, that watch. We're searching everybody's social media for people that they thought might be qualified, or might be good to have on TV, or whatever. I was initially contacted in season 5 to do a father-son episode with my dad, because my dad, like, he got into the knife making same time I did, and we were
Right.
building all of our own equipment at the time. Like, I didn't have a shop. I was working out of my garage. He had a shop at his house, but it was, at that time, was a car shop. He was into hot rods and race cars, and uh it kind of slowly transitioned over to a knife shop. But so I got contacted the first time in season 5. They wanted to do a father-son episode, and initially I told them no. I didn't want to do it. That was something I didn't know if my dad and I were capable of doing that many days together on set. We work good in short stints. We're father-son. We think different. We do things different, and we're both stubborn. So it wouldn't have been it might have been funny to watch, but it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have been good for a relationship, that's for sure. Um, and then uh, season 8 rolls around. They reached out to me again for season 8, and I told them, all right, I'll do it. And they kind of rolled from there. You do some Skype episodes, you do some Skype meetings with them and show them some of the stuff that you've made, and uh, they pretty much say, hey, yeah, we'll take you, or no, they won't. And then when they say yeah, then from that point on, it's kind of a waiting game until you hear, okay, you're leaving next week. And that was kind of the way mine went. I was
Oh
headed
wow.
to a knife show. Yeah, I was headed to a knife show in Austin, Texas, and I got the phone call on Friday that I was leaving on Sunday.
Oh
So
wow. You didn't even have a
I
week.
fin- no, I didn't have a week. I had like 4 days. So I just loaded up all the stuff with me when I went to the knife show, and then flew out of Austin up to Stamford, Connecticut, where it's filmed.
Okay.
that's
So
that's awesome. I would say there's probably a lot of people as movie lovers, and then a lot of guys that are self-filming or putting their stuff on YouTube that has never really looked at what TV production or what goes into that, and the whole process of the shooting of the show. And I guess I think people oftentimes don't realize how long that takes, and then how long that movie is worked between it actually comes out. Could first off, obviously we're talking about Forged in Fire because we know what it is. So I would say if you would give a quick plug for the show, like where you can find it, and then tell us a little bit about what, once you were there in Connecticut, what that whole stuff was like. I think that would fascinate people.
Yeah. So, it's Forged in Fire is on History Channel. And they're supposedly fixing to come out with the next season here shortly. It was dubbed for the 29th, I believe, this month or last month, and has been put off until I don't know when. I just know that from talking with other guys and kind of what the hosts, David Baker and Doug Marcaida, those guys are pretty active on social media, and they still interact with a bunch of the Smiths that have been there. We friend each other on Facebook and we talk. But anyway, yeah, it's a show on History Channel, and it's dedicated to the skill of making a knife in a limited amount of time. And they're not on there making the best knife they can make, but these Smiths are definitely showing what they're capable of. And not necessarily like what you guys get and have gotten, and what I make on the day to day is way different than what that show is able to let these guys show. But what they are showcasing are these guys' skills, and bad skills. I mean, are very good at what they do. No matter how long they've been doing it. Some of these guys have been doing it for 20 plus years, and some of these kids have been doing it for maybe one or two.
Right.
So, on my episode at that time, I'd been making for what, 4 years, 3 or 4 years, something like that. And one of the guys on our episode had been making for 14, and he's legit. Anthony was telling you, he is a great smith, and he got unlucky, and that's what happens. You see some of these good smiths, and I can sit here and name names of some of the guys that I've seen on the show, that have not won the show, or have gotten eliminated. But it all comes down somewhat to luck and somewhat to skill. But so yeah, kind of a rundown of what you see when you get to Connecticut. You get to the hotel room. Once you get on set, there's no phones, no nothing. They take all that from you. The set's pretty basic. It's kind of neat, but it's almost like an old garage or car shop, something like that, like an old mechanic shop. It's like 3 bays, but I mean, you get on set, you get there early in the morning, and then when you get on, that's the first time that you find out what you're actually doing. So you don't find out beforehand. There's nothing. You're given like some vague specifics of maybe what you might be prepared for, but outside of that, yeah, you walk on set for the first time and figure out. They give you the challenge of what you're going to be doing. You sign a piece of paper that says you know what you're doing. You agree to it, and away you go. I mean,
it's really the only way they can probably level the playing field, depending on experience, is just like you said. I mean, you got 14-year veteran, unbelievable craftsman, unbelievable smith, and he could try and do something to be unique and show a skill that he is prized in when he's got time, and he forces it into a time situation, and it may work out and make him look great, and unfortunately it might not work out, and that could be his eliminating factor.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and they give you the option to jump down a rabbit hole for sure. And they leave it vague enough on set that you can go to this end of the spectrum and make something crazy good, or try to, or you can go to the far end of the spectrum and take your risk of making something that's just capable of doing the job, but it looks terrible.
Right.
They leave that rabbit hole open for you to jump down for sure.
Yeah, I know one of the battles in some of the episodes, and I don't know if it was yours specifically, Jason, or not, but when my son and I were watching, we'd watched a bunch of episodes. but they give you like one of the challenges is there's like 5 or 6 different materials of metal or of iron or of steel. And it's like this works at a higher temp and it's easier to do this. This one might take a little longer. And it's like really it's your rabbit hole to jump down. Do you want to show a skill that you can work with a harder piece of metal in less time? Or do you want to take the safe route and take something that you know you can get done in time, and it might not be the sturdiest or the sexiest looking thing, but you're going to get it done on time.
Yeah, and I think you really saw that with, I think there was a set of episodes there where they went down with, and if you're not familiar with those patterns, number one, you're set up for failure already.
Right.
But the time, the 3 hour limit being the limiting factor there, doing some of those patterns in 3 hours, like is crazy. I mean, I saw one smith try to attempt feather on an episode, and when you're talking about doing feather Damascus in 3 hours, you're crazy.
Yeah,
And
right.
something like that takes me, at least a full day just to build a billet in my,
Right.
and it's, yeah. But he almost pulled it off. I mean, it was almost successful. So I mean, you walk that line, and that's what, when I saw that episode, I was like, oh yeah, come on, I want to see him pull it off.
You're pulling for him, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see him pull it off, because I know how hard that is for your average Joe. They're just like, they don't really know what's going on. But
Right.
it's still entertaining to watch, and it's neat to watch these guys work. I mean, all of us Smiths still go to each other's shops and just like to stand back and watch each other work.
Heck yeah.
Because we all have our own ways of doing things, and it might have some different outcomes, but it's all interesting. You always learn something watching another Smith work.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, and
But,
oh, we're gonna say something?
no, go ahead.
I say, like I said, I'm gonna throw some video up down at the bottom a little bit closer up of these knives, but I mean, these are definitely not any kind of blade that you will find at Walmart. Just the pattern on the blade. I mean, customization. Obviously super sharp, nice, durable. I mean, you don't have to worry about cutting into bone and this thing splitting in half or something crazy. But then you do leather sheaths. I mean, obviously these were specific for our show, but I mean, I am probably like most folks that don't know a whole lot about what goes into making a knife outside of there's a metal material and something hot and probably some hammering. So can you give kind of a simple overview of kind of how that works?
Yeah, most definitely. So I'll use you guys' knife is probably a really good example. Typically when I first start working with somebody, it's like I reached out to you guys. What do you want? What do you have in mind? What do you see? And then that's my job to create it. And once we had settled on a design and what you guys liked, then that's when I go in the shop, and the steels as far as the Damascus goes are 1084 or 15 and 20, or the two different steels that I stack up in layers, and then forge weld all that together and just stretch it out into a bar, and then I'll cut it up and stack it again and stretch it out. And I keep doing that. I'm adding layer counts is what I'm doing. And that pattern, as I add those layer counts, that pattern gets finer and finer and finer and small. Like this one, I don't know how well you can see the pattern. That one is what I would consider a low layer. So that one is like 20 layers, something like that. I believe what you guys got was over 100, wasn't it? It's close to 200. Yeah.
Scoot that up there. I don't know if you can see it all
Yeah,
right.
I think that was closer to 200 layers.
Yeah, it's just
And then to get the shape, like in the steel, as far as those go, those are what I would call they're loose laddered. And you actually go in there and you can forge those grooves. You can forge grooves into the billet as you forge it out, or you can stretch that billet out to a point and then grind the grooves in and then forge it flat. And so what that does is that brings those bottom layers up, and that's what makes the lines and kind of, and some of the design, other designs have to be actually forged in. We have to what we call resquare the steel. So we'll actually take a square rectangular piece of steel and then flip it, like resquare it in the
Right.
dies, not just turning the steel. We're actually smashing it in a whole nother direction to get a pattern the way we want it.
Jason, do you have a raindrop blade right there near you?
I don't. That's the only one I have is right now is the random. I give me 1 second. I'll bring a sand.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Folks, while he's taking a look around, folks that are watching this, go to his Facebook, check him out on all the socials. But anything that he shares between him and his father, they have very unique patterns. There's probably a handful to maybe almost matter. Sometimes they're wider, sometimes they're tighter. But the raindrop is a really unique looking one. That was another one that I was close to picking for us, Zach. It's just, not to get too graphic, but you got that blood dripping down the blade of the knife, and kind of get one of those still shots for the show. If you had a raindrop pattern on a blade, that would look pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't have any raindrop. I have a feather, which is a really fine feather. It's gonna be hard to see. This one is a feather I forged, and then I sent a piece of steel to the guy that was runner up to me on the show, and he made a knife with it and sent me and brought me the knife at the next knife show that we did together. So be super hard to see that feather, but
Oh wow.
you can kind of see it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the spine right down the middle of the blade there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a feather that I forged and then sent to him. And then he finished the knife and then gave me the knife out of it. This one I finished the other day. That is wrought iron over the fish hook canister. So was the core and then wrought iron over the top of that.
That's really neat.
That's pretty neat.
Now, what kind of temperature?
Yeah, I mean, there's a what
go
kind
ahead.
of temperature we're forging between 21 and 2300 degrees. So it's just to say it's hot in the shop is an understatement.
Yeah, I bet.
And most until this year, I actually didn't have a forge with a front on it. Mine was all open, so all that heat just
all that heat was coming out.
Yeah, I mean it months ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing it when you posted it.
Yeah, and we put a lid on that thing. Man, it makes a world of difference.
Now, this might be a dumb question, but once again, not too familiar with how knife making goes, but how do you get are you using like a gas powered like forge, or is it all coals and wood and fire and stuff? Or like how do you even get something that hot?
So yeah, no, I'm using what's called a ribbon burner forge. So it's actually an old propane tank that is lined with KO wool and a castable refractory on the inside of the KO wool that reflects the heat. And it's specific for what we're doing. Like they use it in boilers and things like that, for boiler makers and things. That stuff can go up to 2400 degrees, 2500 degrees and not melt. So I line the inside of that old propane tank with KO wool, and then put castable refractory on top of that. The burner itself is about 8 inches long, and it's got holes in it, and that the burner, so it's framed in square tubing, but the centerpiece, the actual burner part of it, is cast also. It's castable refractory, the same stuff that we use on the inside of the forge, and we just cast it with holes in specific patterns depending on how much fuel we want to use. And it is propane forced air. It has a fan. I have a blower that forces air into the forge. So it's, I mean, I guess you could say, I mean, it's a lot like a turbo motor on a car where you're
Right.
adding air to the fire.
Yep.
So we're just taking it to another extreme.
Sure.
But,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's essentially what it is. So I've got an air pipe that goes in, a fuel line that comes in right above the air pipe, and then it pushes that fuel and air up into that burner, and I can push. I've got a high output, what do you call it? Regular my propane tank, and I can regulate how much fuel I need depending on how much air I'm wanting to push or how hot I want to get it.
So
I
we've
mean,
come a long way from the medieval times of wood coals and sticking it in the
no doubt.
ground
And
for
there's,
overnight.
don't get me wrong, coal still has its place. And I initially started on a little bitty homemade coal burning forge. My first setup was a little homemade coal forge with a leaf blower or I think that's what I used on it. And to get it hot enough, and then my anvil was 2 plates of AR-15 steel that we were cutting targets out of,
Dang.
shooting targets, sitting on top of a cross tie. So that was that was my initial setup.
Humble beginnings for sure.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I know this will be an interesting fact for our viewers. But we talked a little bit about you working with the Amarillo sod poodles, and for our followers and listeners and watchers that don't know what that is or who they are, you kind of tie in really nicely with the rest of our group here at Luck of the Draw. Is you are the head groundskeeper for a AA professional baseball affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That is
So you are
correct.
very familiar with the sport of baseball.
Yes.
And I know that holds near and dear to a lot of our hearts. Don't hold it against Zach. He's a lowly Cubs fan.
Oh,
Beautiful field though.
So
Hey, man, from where I sit, I'm not well, I can't say I'm not team specific. Go Stros. I'm still an Astros fan, but that was where I did my internship too. So where I sit, Zach, man, that's probably one of the most beautiful fields of baseball.
it's
So
definitely my favorite one that everybody asks me. What's your favorite stadium? I grew up a Yankee fan. I was fortunate enough to be in both old and new, but going to Wrigley Field just always felt like it was baseball at its purest.
that's the nostalgia right there at its finest.
mhm.
Yeah, you can't beat drunk people in the bleachers at 10:30 in the morning during BP. That's just so they don't want to bear the losses at the end of the game, so they just want to make sure they have a good time.
Ouch.
That cuts pretty deep right now because we started off the year really good and
Not as deep as one of these can cut, though.
maybe on my next knife I'll have you put that Chicago Sea on there for me.
Ooh, I don't know if I can go that
There
far.
you go.
Challenge accepted.
Every man's got his limitations.
This man knows none.
Hey, they're not in the same division.
It's all right. I'll put the Houston H underneath the handles.
Hey, I can't say a whole lot because, like I said, Cubbies haven't been looking so hot.
No, let's say Houston can't say a whole lot right now either. It's been pretty bad too.
The
Hopefully,
Yankees are looking pretty good, but it's
yeah,
only
yeah.
June 1st or 2nd.
So no, I'd say I hate to say it, but the Sod Poodles look a lot like Houston this year. Sometimes
Oof.
sometimes they show up, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So it's been we're having a little bit of a rebuilding year. We won the championship in Texas League last year. It was kind of neat. Got to get a ring, and that's
Nice.
always that's always pretty cool.
Very cool.
Welcome to the alumni.
What's that?
Welcome to the alumni. I was 2000 Texas League champ with Round Rock.
Yeah. And I tell you, Midland's on pace to.
Are they still the A's?
What's that?
Are they still the Athletics?
Yeah, crazy enough. They're like 4 games up in Texas League right now. I mean, their run scored is pretty crazy. Like their offense
Yeah.
is insane right now. So
Well, so maybe we got to trade some Cubs players to the A's and get some of their prospects.
we just picked up a ex MLBer playing. He's playing for us in Double A. They signed him as a free agent last week.
Probably
But
sitting on his couch. Is it Bartolo?
what's that?
I said he was probably sitting on his couch. Is it Bartolo?
No. No, it's Matthew Beatty.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he's been in
Good.
and out of several organizations, but
Yeah. Only takes one for it to click.
that's it.
Well, we are getting ready to kick off our opening day of the Gulf Shores Collegiate League tomorrow morning. So I want to thank you and appreciate your time this evening, Jason. Thanks for coming on. Look forward to seeing more of your great arts of work on socials, and obviously the private text messages are always welcome. And once we get the trip planned to come down there either this year or next, I will definitely look you up because we're going to come to the shop.
Definitely. Yeah. No, you're more than welcome. That's one thing I try to always say my shop doors are always open. It's one of the things that I like to do most is share what I do. Whether it's teaching or people watching and I just enjoy I enjoy the education side of it, and people really get an understanding of what we do, as far as bladesmiths go. I'm by far not I wouldn't call myself a blacksmith. I am a bladesmith. That's what I do. I make knives, and that's and I don't think that's any less than the guys that are doing, or any more or any less, either way, the guys that are doing stock removal or any of that. But one thing that it's always fun for me to be able to just to share. I think people always enjoy watching it.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. A unique skill, and hopefully this will be the first of many times we'll have you on the podcast, and hopefully be able to get you on an episode, if not this year, next year, but definitely get out and do some hunting. And appreciate you kind of dropping some knowledge on us. And it's always nice to talk baseball, but hey, if we're going to talk baseball, let's try and say nice things about the Cubs. They're doing bad enough. I don't need more.
We did. We said it was a beautiful field.
It is. That's good enough for tonight. Can't say much else after them getting whooped by the Reds today. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, thanks for being on, Jason. We'll be in touch soon, and hopefully, like I said, we'll have you back on.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me. It's always good to see you guys, and can't wait to hopefully get to see you guys in person soon enough.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, have a good night, gentlemen.
All right. Have a good one,
All
guys.
right, Zach.
You too. See you guys.